So welcome everybody to the Venus Retrograde preview. I've been so excited about this Venus Retrograde since the last Venus Retrograde. And especially so for this one for multiple reasons, which I will kind of give an overview of for this in this webinar. And what I'm going to do is take you through a little bit about the Venus cycle. I could talk for days about it, to be honest. So this is a real, overview of the Venus cycle and Venus. And I see we have astrologers and non-astrologers. So I'm going to hopefully speak to everybody. There is one section where I look at a lot of charts, but I will point at things, and I don't want you to. I want you to focus more on what I say and the patterns. And I also want you to excuse the noise of my dogs. We've got eclipse season and my dogs are rattling around and they will not sit down. And this morning, I'm surprised I made it here with the eclipse, first eclipse being tomorrow night, and the crazy energy that we've got right now. I've had crazy week. One of my cats had emergency surgery for an abscess on her cheek Saturday morning, and this morning when I took her collar off to inspect the wound and to clean it a little bit, she managed to escape and got under my bed and and managed to pull the scab off. But the vets looked at photos and she's fine. But it's been like one of those weeks. Crazy. But we're here. Yes, animals are so sensitive. So if you can hear a dog rattling around, my dogs often sneeze when I'm doing webinars too. Just know that they're joining in. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start sharing the slides because I think probably everybody who's arriving live is here, and I'm going to present from the beginning. So this puts my slides in full screen mode, so I'll look at the chat box at the end. I'll open things up for questions at the end, all things like that. I just have to tell my husband that I'm on my call because he's texted me to say he's on his way home, and he's clearly forgotten my call starts right now. So anyway, so this is a webinar for the Venus retrograde that spans the end of 2021 and into the beginning of 2022. And we're going to look at this retrograde, and we'll look at the history of these retrogrades a little bit as well, and what's special about this retrograde in my humble opinion, because I think this retrograde is going to be the start of some very paradigm shifting events, and you'll see why, hopefully. So my personal Venus journey, in 2017, I ran my first Venus Retrograde Heroines Journey class as an astrologer, and so that's a class I run during Venus Retrograde. I will tell you a little bit about that towards the end. The fourth one that I've been running begins on my birthday, December the 14th. Now, Venus actually came to me in a dream because I work very much at a shamanic level with the planets, and she said, you are just going to do this class. And since that point, I have studied Venus. My relationship with Venus has deepened. This year, I became certified in Ariel Gutman's Venus Star Point work and certified to teach and use her system. Also, I'm heavily influenced by a little book that came into my possession called The Mysteries of Venus, which I don't think is available anymore, by an astrologer called Mark Lerner. His own journey with Venus. And there's other things too, but there's a reason I call my community, my member community, the Venus Enchantment community, and I hope you kind of get a real feel for why I think working with Venus is a hugely important thing for us as humans. Okay, so what is the Venus star point? The Venus star point simply means the moment when the Sun aligns with Venus from the Earth's perspective. Gutman, whose star point work I'm certified in, describes it as informing our cellular embryonic development and resonates through life as an inner eros. And she says that because we each have a personal Venus star point and we have a collective Venus star point. So it really is our inner eros. Eros meaning love. The fact eros is an anagram of the word rose is quite significant. We'll come back to that. Venus, just the more I learn about Venus, the more I realize Venus is just so important for us as humans and so related to our humanness. So a Venus star point occurs every 9.5 months, which is the length of a human pregnancy. So one star, the retrograde star, becomes the morning star. The other, the direct star point, is the evening star. And we are currently in the evening star phase and about to enter the retrograde. That will start like a new Venus, if you like, kind of like a new moon, and start the morning star phase of Venus for 9.5 months. And we're going to look at that cycle, a little bit at the cycle that's ending. Okay. And there's a reason I've put a 5-pointed star there, because that's very related to Venus. So the Venus-Earth relationship is a real sister planet act. If you think about the lineup of the cosmos, we have the Sun in the center of our solar system. We have Mercury, the messenger, which is the closest planet to the Sun. Then we have Venus, then we have Earth. Okay. And these are the most personal planets of all. After the Earth, we have Mars, who is both warrior and guardian. And Venus, in most astrological contexts, is the divine feminine, and Mars the divine masculine. There's various ways to look at that, but really the Venus and the Earth's movement together in the cosmos is so unique that they do such an intimate dance together, that she really represents, to my mind, and also other people have said it, the higher incarnation of Venus. Mark Lerner called it that, and others have too. The higher incarnation of Earth. So we'll move towards that. So the Venus star, as opposed to the star point, the actual star is a 5-pointed star, which I mentioned before. In relationship to the Earth, Venus forms a pentagram over time, a 5-pointed shape that we refer to as a star. We also each have a personal Venus star, as I said. Now, this 5-pointed star appears everywhere in nature. Once you see it, you will not unsee it. You'll go around seeing it everywhere, in flowers, in fruit. When you cut them in half, that's the apple, which of course the apple is generally a motif that's connected with the divine feminine. The Vitruvian Man, so us ourselves, are a 5-pointed star, as Da Vinci pointed out. And we actually have we have the head, 2 hands, 2 feet. We have 5 kind of points in our humanness. We have 5 digits. You could go on. The pomegranate, there's a 5-pointed star again. These things show up over and over and over. This is why I think Venus is so important. and why these Venus retrogrades and the Venus cycle is so life-changing to actually really work with. Okay. Now, this image is courtesy of astrologer Deborah Holding, but it also came from Ariel Gutman. So this is a kind of a diagram of one Venus cycle of different retrograde of the loops, okay, in 8 years. Venus, you'll see Venus has a pattern that kind of repeats every 8 years and at greater cycles. And what I find most interesting about this particular pattern of one 8-year cycle to make the perfect 5-pointed star in the middle is that it looks like a heart. Because Venus really is to do with the heart's desire, earthly desires, what we love, all kinds of things like that. Now, in kind of astrology, Leo also rules the heart, but Venus really is to do with the heart and our relationships, and it shows up in her pattern. Now this is 8 orbits of Venus actually creates this beautiful, almost perfect pattern. Now, when you look even deeper into it, it's not quite perfect, but it's the most perfect of all the regular planets' patterns. And this forms a rose in the center. And remember I said Eros and rose? Now here we have this 5-pointed rose. This is a motif that shows up in, stained glass windows, everywhere like that. The symbol of many of the goddesses throughout the centuries has been the rose. Mary Magdalene, that was the rose. So was the Mary, all the Marys. Isis, they're all connected with roses in some way. And if you look into a lot of kind of occult kind of things, if you want to call them occult as in hidden messages, the rose shows up on tarot, all kinds of things. So here we have rose, Eros, all kind of coming together, and this is what this beautiful pattern looks like, a bit like a spirograph, for anybody who remembers those. Now, a little bit of math. Don't get too tied up in the math, but Venus is also related to pi or phi. And so Venus orbits the sun in 224 days, and Earth orbits the sun in 365 days. And if you divide 365 by 224, it's 1.6. Okay, now the Venus synodic cycle, which means the time from Venus sun to next Venus sun, is 584 days, and the Earth synodic cycle with the sun is 365 days, our year, and again that comes to phi or pi. 5 synodic cycles of Venus in an 8-year period give us 1 full star, phi or pi again. 5.8 is 5/8 is the musical scale, and 5/8 is Venus as well. So 5 cycles in 8 years, and Venus is associated with music and the voice and singing and harmony of the spheres. The Nautilus shell and most seashells contain this frequency in their design. The Fibonacci sequence of numbers is Venus numbers. You can see here we have the 5, the 8, but it goes on and on and on. The Venus cycle creates these numbers as well, or involves these numbers. And this is also the harmony of the spheres, or the most harmonious mathematical value is phi or pi on Earth. And in design, architecture, etc., apparently if buildings are created using phi, they are more long-lasting and stable than a square box like we build these days. The more you look into it, it's kind of like, wow. And this is Venus. So entire books have been written about pi or phi, so we can't, this is just a little bit for you. And Venus delivers this value to us over and over and over and over again. And just to have a look at the spiral, how it works, you know, this is how it works on graph paper with the Fibonacci sequence creating the spiral. It's just absolutely awe-inspiring and magical the more you look into it. And here's some examples in nature of how it shows up. You're going to start seeing these spirals everywhere, I think. Now, I said that the Venus cycle forms a 5-pointed star over time, and it does. And we look at the star point as the point where the sun and Venus meet every 9.5 months, and they move slightly backwards over time. You can see this in 2006. The Capricorn Venus star was 23 degrees and back to 21 until the upcoming one is 18 degrees Capricorn, and they alternate between a retrograde one and direct one. Don't get too tied up in the technicals, just be amazed at, you know, how Venus works. Now, every 8-year Venus star goes through different signs. For quite some time, we've had Capricorn, Scorpio, Leo, Gemini, and Aries. All right. This Venus cycle is different. This one is Capricorn, but the next Venus star point after this, that's on October the 22nd, 2022, all those twos, moves back to Libra. Then we go back to Scorpio for one, and then it will be Libra again for 100 years. Now, those of you that know astrology a little bit will know that we've moved into an age of air. To explain a little bit to non-astrologers, last December 21st exactly, we had a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn at 0 Aquarius, and this is called a great conjunction. This one was also called a great mutation, and because the great conjunctions happen every 20 years, and for 200 years they are going to be in air. What is air? Air is new inventions, new ideas, new thought. Well, we're also moving into a Libra star point for 100 years. Of course, we're still going to be in some of these others, but but it is a shift. It is a shift that coincides with this other shift. So again, don't get too tied up in that. Just remember that this Venus cycle that's starting with this upcoming Venus retrograde is a shift into a new feel, a new energy. Okay. So a little bit about Venus. Venus is a very interesting, this is from this little book that I talked about. Venus is a very interesting planet. It's perhaps the most closely connected with the Earth in a number of ways, and it has been said that wherever Venus goes, there goes the Earth also, and vice versa. As phrased in The Secret Doctrine, which was Madame Blavatsky, who was a bit of a strange person, but it's an interesting book. Venus is the most occult, powerful, and mysterious of all the planets, the one whose influence upon and relation to the Earth is most prominent. Now, key words to describe the energy of Venus. You know, again, I could kind of like expand this list, but I'm not going to read them all, but love, harmony, values, relatedness, you can see some of the others, but she's also about attraction. She's attraction to, or what we attract. She's how we love and feel loved. You could say it's our love language, to go back to that book. She's also it can be Venus indecisive, overindulgent, self-indulgent, and vain. I love the word at-one-ment for Venus and atonement. I also feel that Venus is very much associated with the law of attraction if it's used properly. Jupiter is actually the kind of the law of it, the idea, the philosophy of the law of attraction. But if you work with the law of attraction beyond the secret, which was, magical thinking, you have to get really clear on what you are attracted to, what you desire. And another word for Venus is your core values. Without knowing your core values, did I even add? Oh, I did values. Without knowing what you really value and what your core values are and how you love and what you desire, then you cannot attract what you really want in your life, or how you really what kind of abundance in all ways that you want to create. So Venus is ruler of 2 signs. Venus is ruler of Libra, which is an air sign, and so Venus is going to rule that next star point that starts next October. Okay. And she's also the ruler of Taurus, which is an earth sign. And Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces, which means she also loves being in that sign. And incidentally, we do have a Venus star point beginning in 2038, I think it is. So we're going to shift into a more Venusian age over time. And you'll see why I think that's relevant coming up soon. So esoterically, Venus is also considered sole ruler of Gemini and the spiritual or hierarchical ruler of Capricorn. And that's important because this Venus retrograde coming up is in Capricorn. Just a reminder, I'll look at the chat at the end. Okay. And answer questions. Now, Venus has been worshipped under many names. So here's a few of them: Aphrodite, Ishtar, Freya, Cybele, Inanna. And Venus can appear, as I mentioned before, morning star, where you see her rise before the sun, when she's known as Phosphorus or Lucifer, but it should be Lucifera because she's divine feminine, which actually means light bearer. Kind of makes you think about how the word Lucifer might have been a bit demonized by patriarchy. So she can also appear as an evening star when the planet is known as Hesperus. And morning star is more yang, warrior goddess Venus. And that's the one we'll be entering after this retrograde. And the evening star that we're in now is a more yin, receptive love goddess Venus. But if you also think of the Venus cycle a bit like the moon cycle, we have a new Venus, if you like, at the retrograde, where she becomes morning star. So then she's like going up and up and out into the world until she reaches kind of the full Venus or full moon at the next Venus sun point, and then she's descending, which is the releasing cycle, end of the cycle. Astrology is all about cycles. Okay. Now, I want to switch gears from the astrology for a minute to talk about the heroine's journey, because the Venus journey is a heroine's journey, and we've been in the hero's journey for a long time, and I think that we are currently in the middle of and this cycle is really putting us in the mix of the heroine's journey. Now, this is the cycle of the heroine's journey from a book by Maureen Murdoch called The Heroine's Journey. Separation from the feminine, identification with the masculine and gathering of allies, road of trials, so that's like your difficulties and challenges along the way, finding the boon, awakenings to feeling of spiritual aridity or death. Or could you turn your mic off, please, whoever's got the mic on? And initiation and descent to the goddess and reconnection with the feminine, healing of the mother-daughter split, healing the wounded masculine, and integration of the masculine and feminine. There's various, that's one of the most well-known books about the heroine's journey. There's other descriptions out there with slightly different steps, but we see this heroine's journey repeated in myth after myth. The myth of Demeter and Persephone is the heroine's journey. The myth of the goddess Inanna's journey into the underworld is the heroine's journey. And the Venus cycle follows the heroine's journey. Okay. Which is why I do the Venus retrograde class, because the Venus retrograde, to my mind, is some astrologers think it's the exterior conjunction, the one that happens the next one, that's the real Venus underworld journey. I find the Venus retrograde just works perfectly because it's 7 weeks and for about around 40 days and 40 nights. And that takes us right down into the underworld and up again. So I'm just going to quickly shut my office door. Yes, I don't know why he had to come in the middle of a call. But anyway, perils of working at home during eclipse season. So, you know, think about how this feels for you when we look at it, and think about what process is happening to you through this winter. I'm going to give you the dates and things for the Venus retrograde. Whether you join me in the class or not, you will be feeling it. It's a journey into the underworld in whatever part of the chart you're in. And it's a healing journey. The heroine's journey is a healing journey. Now, the hero's journey is a solo journey. It's one where they go out into the world and attack the demons and kind of fight them off. And then, you know, they're usually kind of left feeling quite alone. But the heroine's journey is one of community, connection, coming together, and integration. And I think it's, well, what we're called to work with right now collectively as human beings. So this is nothing to do with whether you're a male or a female. I think we are being called through all these crazy things that are happening in our world right now to remember this connection. And it's been building for a while. The last Venus retrograde was in Gemini. If you remember, Venus is the sole ruler of Gemini. This one's in Capricorn, the spiritual rulership of Venus, and then we're moving into this phase of new ideas, and it harkens back in history. I'll be looking at that as well. Okay, come on. Oh, too far then. Right, so this was, don't get too caught up on the details. I just want to give you some idea of the pattern of the retrograde. And if you know your chart, you can look at where it is on there. It's not necessary. I'm talking about a bit bigger kind of meta level, if you like, on this call. So the last Venus retrograde star point was last June the 3rd, 2020. And I kind of think we all know what was happening in 2020. Kind of crazy, right? And it was at 13 Gemini, if you remember about the soul ruler. Now, at this point, Venus has gone all the way around the chart and then 0.6 around, or will have done by the time of the retrograde. So if you remember, it's that phi number. And she's come round for that whole 1.6 times of the zodiac to address, to end that last cycle and start a new cycle. So we are getting some kind of energetic completion of a cycle that began last June. All right. So, but there's more, of course. So this year, Venus is going to station retrograde on December the 19th, 2021. And she is going to station retrograde conjunct the planet Pluto, which is down, it's down here at the bottom. And she's going to station retrograde in square to the planet Eris. Now, or dwarf planet. They're both dwarf planets. Pluto is what I call the shit excavator. Pluto has been excavating the shadow and what's not working in our institutions and structures of our lives, how we structure our lives and our relationship to authority, all those kind of themes in Capricorn since 2008. And now Pluto has come to 25 degrees. He actually did get to 26, but anyway. And Venus and Pluto are actually part of a dance, really. If you kind of think of mythical themes of Venus as Persephone, this higher innocence who was taken down into the underworld by Hades or Pluto, they both represent desire in many ways. Soul desire, earthly desire, physical, carnal desires, all that kind of thing. Here, Pluto and Venus are working together in this retrograde coming up. Now, Eris is the shit stirrer. She has been causing problems since, well, quite some time. But since January 2020 until recently, Pluto and Eris were in this exact square alignment 5 times for the whole time of the pandemic. All right. And this is the pandemic, of course, you know, from my astrological perspective, has been causing us to re-evaluate how we live on this planet. Big time. It's just one of the major things. And so here we are coming to coming to a peak with Venus retrograding, activating this Pluto Eris square. But not only that, as Venus stations retrograde, I want you to look at this line here. This is the Lunar Nodes, which is really our, it's a kind of our karmic lessons, our karmic past, our karmic potential. I don't want to get too tied up in the astrology of it, but I just want you to see this shape. Almost all the planets are confined into one half of the chart. And in Vedic astrology, that's called the Kala Sarpa yoga or Kala Sarpa dosha. It's time of the black snake that really translates to. Now, I'm not a Vedic astrologer, and Vedic astrology puts a ton of fear about this configuration. But in greater research, there's a book by an astrologer called Alan Anand about the draconic bowl, this is called, because it's a bowl shape with the nodes as the lip, is a time of kind of extreme pressure. In a natal chart, it reveals to be somebody who either uses their life for real good or real bad. It tends to be extreme. Now, we did have two draconic bowls recently, both of which over the last winter and the end of the winter of 2020. Both times coincided with times of greatest lockdowns, greatest confinement, greatest kind of peak of the pandemic, but also kind of times of other turmoil as well in the world. So I don't want to only focus on the pandemic. I kind of do feel like, you know, we are entering into a bit of a winter of, I prefer to call it alchemical transformation, if you like. All these planets are so concentrated during this Venus retrograde that it's like a big melting pot of all the energies. If you think of the planets as representing parts of ourselves and our humanity, and this Venus retrograde is a major part of it, okay, because it's over the period of her retrograde. Venus is probably going to aspect every important planet on the chart, okay. So it's just a period of, like, we can take all we know and what we need to do, and we can create something. After all, alchemy is trying to make gold right out of base metals. It's trying to create something beautiful out of something less beautiful. So I prefer to have a positive spin. I think the universe is always giving us opportunities and messages to here's what you can do. Up to you whether you do or not. So this is very concentrated. So the retrograde actually starts on December the 19th. It starts at 27 degrees Capricorn and will move back to 11 degrees Capricorn. So if you are an astrologer or know your chart, or you just know your chart, you can look where 26 degrees or 11 to 26 degrees Capricorn is in your chart. Again, if you're not an astrologer, it's still happening. You don't need to know the astrology to experience this. Okay. Now, the actual Venus star point itself is at 18 degrees 43 minutes of Capricorn on January the 8th. And if you see, we're still in this intense confinement or draconic bowl. And in fact, at that point, the moon is also on this half of the chart and has been for a couple of weeks by then. As we know, the moon cycle is about a month, 28 days. Most people know that. And so when we started the confinement and the retrograde, the moon was on this side, but then the moon moves in and we really enter the underworld, okay, which is the center point of the Venus retrograde. Now, again, I don't want to get too tied with the astrology, but I do want to say that this is an 18 degrees, and 18 is a 9, which is completion. Also 18 degrees, we have Mars in Sagittarius, and Mars and Venus are kind of the lovers, if you like, the divine masculine and feminine. They will meet together shortly after the retrograde at a very significant point. But again, I don't want you to get too tied up in all this math. Then we have this figure here, the Pallas Athena, who's the problem solver, and she's near Neptune. She's been in Pisces, which is this sign she's in here, for quite some time. She'll be exactly square the Venus star point. And Venus in, Pallas Athena is the problem solver. So we're being given an opportunity to tune in to source, to spirit, to find the solution to, or strategies to move forward, okay? And that's why on my Venus retrograde class I do shamanic healing. I'll tell you what's involved in that in a minute. But, you know, anyway, I love doing these things whether you sign up or not. So The Venus retrograde ends on January the 29th, and we can see that we are still in this confinement. Now, the Venus retrograde the Venus retrograde shadow, when she entered the degree that she will station direct at, began in aspect to Uranus, and she stations direct in aspect to Uranus. And Uranus is the great awakener, if you like. He pretends to bring breakthroughs, but sometimes breakdowns as well. So it could go either way. Uranus is expect the unexpected. But as you can see, we are still in this confinement, and Venus has a little ways to go till she completely emerges from the sun's light into morning star. Oh gosh. Oh, sorry. Now, the other thing to note is that we've had a shift of where the lunar nodes are that are confining this. They've been in Sagittarius and Gemini since May 2020. And now they're moving backwards into Scorpio and Taurus, and the eclipses are all moving into Scorpio and Taurus. And this is a lot connected to, well, Venus rules Taurus for a start, but the Taurus-Scorpio axis is really a lot about our self-worth, our self-esteem, and our deeply bonded relationships. It's also about money, desire, some of those Venusian things, other people's money in Scorpio. And so we're getting a shift of emphasis as Venus turns direct and moves direct, saying we're moving towards something new. We're moving towards Taurus, which is what we value, our self-worth, our self-esteem, our core values. We're going to really be asked to look at that, and it's an extreme concentration of energy moving towards that. Now I'm trying to I see there's a couple of really good astrologers on here, but I'm trying to keep this really simple because there's a lot of people on here who are not astrologers at all. So hopefully I'm bringing the balance. Okay. Now then, I'm going to move to October 2022. Venus meets the sun again on October the 22nd, 2022 at 29 degrees of Libra. She's going to be widely in square to Pluto and opposing Eris, who are still in orb of each other, causing all this discord and revealing of crap and and all that kind of stuff. Incidentally, for US-based watchers, this is involving the US Pluto return as well, but it also involves a Venus cycle. So next year is going to be really interesting. So, but it's 9.5 months from the meeting on January the 8th. All right. And this is going to be such a huge shift. And so we'll be looking at all this cycle, but I want you to know that 2022 is a real shift towards the divine feminine, in my view. To add to that, 2 is really the number of the divine feminine. 1 is the masculine, 2 is the feminine. And look at this, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Yes, it's a 10 month, that is a 1, because we do have to unite them. but it's also a new start. I kind of feel like there's many reasons, but we're going into this alchemical bowl this winter for this Venus retrograde to be given the opportunity to unite the divine masculine and the divine feminine, which is in all of us. So we can unite it within ourselves. We can come together as male and female and masculine and feminine, which is in all of us. But I also think it's beyond that. I think because this retrograde is in Capricorn this winter, and that's the structures under which we live, I think we're being given an opportunity to readjust and recreate the structures we live under. If we go back in the times of mists of time, you know, the old Roman gods and goddesses and Greek gods and goddesses had equal numbers of males and females. Over time, the patriarchy, which is a system, so nothing to do with men again, took over, and it became hierarchical, very top down, all that kind of energy. I think we're being given the opportunity to create something different. Then in Libra, we come next October to Libra, the sign of balance and harmony and justice. Okay, so, you know, this is my take on it, or my hope, or my wish, or I believe that we can work with these energies to work towards creating this. Okay, and it also involves our balance and harmony with how we live on the earth. This is a big part of it. Okay, Venus is nature as well. Venus is the plants, the trees, all that kind of stuff. So, and how we live in harmony with the earth. So I do want to tell you a little bit about the Venus retrograde class. And then I've got a couple of blow your mind moments, so don't leave. So the class is 7 weeks, 40 days and 40 nights of retrograde, around about 8 calls starting December the 14th on my birthday. All calls will be recorded. Knowing me, I'll probably add an extra call at the end. I usually do. I do in the class, it's not just astrology. So it's not just, you know, look at this chart and here's the numbers. This is a healing heroine's journey. I'm also a trained shamanic practitioner. I do shamanic journeying throughout it. I do other shamanic healing processes as a group throughout it. I also look at numbers, patterns, tarot, symbols, and I do a lot of mythic storytelling as part of the class. It's not just an astrology class. As I said, it's not necessary to know your chart, but if you wish, there is an optional discounted consultation available. But, you know, it's just as effective just doing the work as guided by me. It's an immersive heroine's journey, which is done in group work, and it is life-changing. As I said before, the hero's journey is done alone, and the heroine's journey always has companions. All calls will be recorded, of course, so you don't have to attend live. And I'll be posting the link, but it's on my website, it's on my social media. But as I said, I want to blow your mind once more about why this Venus retrograde is so huge. So, Venus has an approximate 250-year cycle. In 1771, on January the 9th, just a day after this next Venus star point is, because I told you it's not quite perfect, the Venus cycle, it's close but not perfect. We had a Venus star point on January the 9th, 1771 at 19 degrees of Capricorn. Okay. And this Venus star point is at 18 degrees of Capricorn. So that one was to look at numbers, that was a 19 degrees, which is 1 plus 9 is 10, is a 1. So that's a new beginning. Here we have a completion, an ending. As I mentioned as well, Pluto was in Capricorn back then, and we have Pluto in Capricorn now. Now, this doesn't only apply to the US, although US is kind of getting the biggest hit, okay, because we're having a Pluto return. Because this started a period where there was the French Revolution too, there was other revolutionary energies, and, you know, there was a lot of new constitutions created, talking about, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or brotherhood in French as well, in the French Revolution. It was revolutionary times, and it's repeating again. Now, no 2 times are the same. You know, this doesn't mean it's going to be war. It means there's going to be major changes and transformations in the way we live, in the countries we live in, all things like that. And as without, so within, as the Hermetic axiom goes, that means huge transformations within us also. I don't know about you, but over the recent years, as this has been building, I've changed so much. You know, I have now just created my vegetable garden. You know, I'd never gardened in my life. Things like this have become to matter more to me. I've now drive a little electric vehicle. I'm not saying you have to do the same, but think about how you've been shifting. Well, this is taking us into a pot of shifting like never before, where we really need to create something different. Okay. So it's echoing back to 1771. Now, the October Venus star point that's coming up next October, that will be kind of the 9.5-month pregnancy from the Venus star point that's coming on January the 8th this winter, is even more astounding, because that's when we shifted from a Capricorn, was it Capricorn Scorpio star point to Capricorn Libra. So again, it's kind of repeating over. And back then as well, in 1771, the nodes were also in Scorpio and Taurus. That back then they were reversed though. The South node was in the sign of our values, and the North node was in the sign of Scorpio, which is real magnetism, deep connection and things. This time the North node is in Taurus, so it's kind of reversed from 1771. So it will be different, but it will be similar. Okay, so I hope you're mind blown. So not only are we having a Pluto return, not just for the US, but for us collectively, we're having this Venus cycle return, which is quite astounding. So in some ways 2022 looks more promising than than the last 2 years, which have been quite difficult. But I think in some ways also they have the amazing opportunities for us to really come out of this creating something good and having learned some major lessons. I'm always hopeful. Now, I'm going to give you a little example of a shamanic journey. It's short. I'm only going to give you a very kind of brief idea of what a shamanic journey is like, and of the kind of thing I'll be doing on my class. So it's 3 minutes. I've cut the track shorter than 12 minutes. And I'd like you to just get comfortable and close your eyes. I want you to let the drumming take you. Your shamanic drumming is a guided meditation, really. To cut it short, I'm just going to say that you're going to let your non-ordinary reality, imagination, take you to Venus, and I want you to trust what you get. Whatever Venus shows up as for you, trust what you get. Could be a person, could be a flower, could be a snail shell. And have a little conversation with Venus and just say, what do I need to know about this Venus retrograde that's coming up? All right. Now I'm going to just shut my video off, and 3 minutes, I just want you to close your eyes, get comfortable, take a couple of deep breaths, and just let the drumming guide you into non-ordinary reality, and then we'll open up for questions at the end. Okay. Well, I'm going to just... Whoa, go away. Just leave that up for a second while I look at the chat box. Oh, you can still get Mysteries of Venus on Amazon. You couldn't last time I looked. You don't understand why the star point begins in October 2022. Oh, never mind. Okay. Okay, thanks, Noah. So, anyway, a few of you had to leave by the looks of things. Not always convenient to go and do you figured it out. Yay. So, any questions for me? Any comments? You don't have to unmute yourself. You can put it in the chat box. No, not everybody wants their face all over Zoom. This has been lovely. You're welcome, Georgia. Thank you. Is that yes, the 250-year cycle is true every time. Well, it's about 251 really, but yeah, it's true every single time. There's also greater cycles, Noah, of about 1250 years for Venus, and it's so similar to the Pluto cycle. And I really think, how a lot of astrologers say that Venus and Neptune are very similar. Well, they have similarities, but I actually think Venus and Pluto are more connected, personally. So, yeah, it is interesting. Oh, glad you found it fascinating, Rebecca. Yeah. I hope it wasn't too much for non-astrologers. And I hope some of you will consider doing my Venus class. It's I wait for it between every 19 months. I wait for this new one. Oh, I'm so looking forward to the class too, Emily. And looking. Any other suggestions for getting most out of the course? Just show up. And if you don't know your chart, maybe book the optional upgraded reading. It's very discounted. It's my usual reading cost is $225. It's $150 for class attendees. So, but if you know your astrology, don't worry about that. Just show up. You had a sweet conversation with Venus. Awesome. Oh, thank you, Susan. Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoy it. I could talk about Venus forever, but I managed to keep it about an hour and perfect. Thank you, Tina. Thanks for being here, and I will see you all soon. Venus in Cap today. Yes, matter of fact. Yeah, but also Venus in Cap, I think, is a lot about becoming kind of this wise crone energy. Capricorn is about the elder, and we've very much focused on, elder males, but the crone energy is much needed in this world. I could go on forever, ask me. Yes, Capricorn is yin, exactly. So we need the wise crone energy. So I could talk about this forever, and you talk to me about Venus, Pluto, and Ceres. That's a whole nother thing. And I probably will talk about dwarf planet Ceres in the class too, but I couldn't include everything, of course. So, all right. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you showing up. I am going to get going if there's no questions, and get this recording uploaded to the place so everybody else can see it who couldn't attend live. I'll see you all on the class, whoever's going to come up on the class. See you later.